Hey everyone, and welcome to another Cubase tips tutorial video. Now, yesterday I was actually supposed to upload this video before doing the thank you video, but I completely forgot to even do this video. So I thought I'd do it quickly this morning while I've got time. So today we're going to be looking at some really handy features inside of Cubase for improving your workflow and some shortcuts for things which you guys are going to find really handy to use. So let me just have a sip on this coffee. Right. First thing I want to talk to you guys about is the main window here. You've actually got a really handy feature for doing certain things. So here you can see I've got this template loaded up and it all looks a bit crazy at the moment. But let's say I wanted to create a workspace for, I don't know, mixing this particular track. Obviously some of you go, okay, just bring up the mixer and start mixing and doing whatever. But let's say I don't know, I wanted this turned off, I wanted that turned off, and I just wanted something here loaded up with the mixer just to quickly do something. But let's say I wanted it so my plugins were showing, or should I have it? No, I'll have it like this. Let's say I wanted this kind of window for whatever reason for working on something. And I also wanted to show the video player. So let's put the video player up. Let's say I was doing like a quick mix to a video that was playing here, and I just want that as a reference. Let's say here. And what else can I add that I would like for this workspace? Plugin audio performance. Oh yeah, let's have the audio performance up as well. And let's say that's disappeared. Let's say I wanted that as a working window space for quickly doing something to a video, let's say. Up here you've got this tab called workspaces, and basically what this allows you to do is create snapshots of your main editing window setup, and it allows you to recall them at any point using the numpad. So if I wanted to create this as a workspace, what I'd do is add workspace here, and what it will do is it'll assign it to an alt numpad number. Now you can see here already I've already got some set up for my particular workflow, but we're going to create this new one here. We're going to add the workspace, and I'm just going to call it video. Okay, now down here you've got these two options. You've got global workspace and you've got project workspace. Global workspace means this will apply to every session, and you'll be able to recall it by using the same, you know, alternate and whatever this will be assigned to, alt 6. Project window means it's only project specific, so if you create a different project you won't have this in your workspaces to use. It'll just be for that one project in particular. So I'm going to keep this as a global workspace and click OK. So what we'll see now here is it's assigned to alt num 6. Now if I press alternate and 1, it will change to one of my other workspaces. Excuse me. What you guys can't actually see is on the left, on my other monitor, I've actually got my mixer set up, so it pops up. And then if I press alternate and 2, we've got a slightly different workspace again, which is a little bit bodged because I need to rework it for this new template. And then alternate and 3, you got one mixer here, and then on my other screen I've got a completely different mixer. For those of you that don't know, you've actually got more than one mixer you can load up at any given time in Cubase. You've got 3 different mixers. What I like to do is have one for all of the normal main instruments, and then I like to use another mixer for controlling groups. As you can see here, I've got my groups on there. You know, it's just a quick reference. Now if we finally go alt and 6, it'll bring back up that window we just created. So it's a very nice way to sort of switch between different work styles if you're doing specific tasks, if you're editing, or if you're mixing, or if you're recording or scoring. You can set all these different windows up and use the workspaces feature. Ooh, don't mean to click that. Just to switch between them. You can also organize them as well. If you want to delete any, you can. If you want to rearrange them, or if you want to, you know, assign them to a completely different number. It doesn't have to be alternate and 6. You could assign it to a button on your mouse or whatever, which then brings us to key commands. So key commands are a really, there's lots of different shortcuts inside of Cubase for doing various things and opening up various tools and options. Knowing them is quite handy, but you can also change how they are mapped. You can actually assign them to whatever keys you wish. So for example, I've got one assigned to my mouse button, so when I click it, it actually brings up the VST instrument. If I click it again, it'll close it. So it saves me having to sort of open, go to the inspector and click on the button here to edit the instrument. And to set this up is really straightforward, really. This applies to any key command or any shortcut you want to set up. You just go to File, go to Key Commands, and then you'll have a list of folders with all the different functions on. If there's a specific function you're trying to look for, just type it in the top here. So edit instrument VST instruments. If I click that, and it will find it straight away, and it'll already tell you what the shortcut is for that particular option, but you can also assign your own. And you can see here I've assigned the minus key as the control for doing this with my mouse. Now the reason being is that some mouse companies, for example, I'm using a Razer Mamba mouse, and they'll have their own individual standalone software. So if I load up Razer Synapse, and you've got different modes inside of these things, and here you can see I've got it set to desktop because this allows me to map these keys to a specific key on the keyboard. So for example, when I'm in desktop mode, I've got my mouse key 4 as the minus button, which then corresponds to in here in Cubase. So when I set up the key command and I want it to be for that mouse button, I've already got it set to the minus key, if that makes sense. So moving on, what I want to show you guys now is the folders and visibility section inside of Cubase. Now folders are a very, 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 very handy, useful, life-saving way to navigate through particular sections in your template, and also makes life a lot easier when you're trying to find specific things. So here in my session, let me just expand this a little bit too much so you guys can see what I'm doing. Let's move that over. So here I've got the folders set up. Now if I were to minimize these, there's two ways you can open and close a folder. You can do it through the visibility pane, or you can just click on the icon here and it will do it. I'm just going to do it through the visibility pane for the time being, just to give you guys an idea of my folder scheme. So here I've got these folders which I've coloured in black, and I call these my master folders. So this for particular template, I've got the strings folder, the brass folder, the woodwinds folder, and the percussion folder. And then inside of those folders, what I like to do is create the vendors which I will be using for particular patches. So here I've got Cinematic Studio Series. So if I want to, for the strings, if I want to use CS2, then I've got it in a folder with my patches loaded up here, so I can just view them or close them. And if I'm not using them, then I can just keep the folder closed, or I can use the invisibility pane. I could use the visibility pane here to actually just hide them all together. So it's a nice way to sort of keep things nice and separated. Some people will just have a strings folder and then they'll have every single patch loaded up and named in a certain way. And what you'll also notice as well with the naming schemes here, I've actually put these tags in, and the reason for that is when you're using the search function, it just makes it a lot easier to find a particular vendor. So if I type in that, you'll see that this is all my Inspire patches from Orchestral Tools, and it's just a way to sort of organize things a little bit better. So without getting too distracted, with the folders, there's not really much to it. You can assign a bunch of things to a folder by holding Shift and then clicking the top and bottom to select all the things in between. Then you can right click and send something to a folder. Obviously I've already done that on here. So it's just a way to make things easier for navigating around and really tidying up your session and making it a bit more organized. You can see as well I've used the color coding here for this. The inspector, you can also navigate through individual patches in the inspector. I wish this was slightly resizable, but it's currently not. But what this allows you to do, so if I have the strings selected, the master folder here, you'll see in the inspector I've got 3 different folders showing up, which are the subfolders. And if I open up one of these, it will show you each patch. And now the handy thing is here is I can actually click on this and it will bring up all of the normal options here for the tools. But I can, it just means I can move through patches, which is a little bit easier. Let's say if I got all these opened up, I'm just going to make this ridiculous for a minute. Okay, so let's say we had it all like that, and normally you'd want to click things like this, okay, just to open up the options and start working with them, but you can just do it like this using the inspector, and it's just a slightly quicker way, in all honesty, just to get to something if it's a little bit fiddly to click on over here. It's sort of like that extra way you can get to things. The other thing with the visibility is you can hide individual patches as well, or individual things. It's entirely up to you. I think we've covered that. Moving on swiftly, what I want to look at now, guys, is the quick controls function. Now, quick controls is so handy. It's something that many people don't really use or maybe not know about. But what it allows you to do is control pretty much anything inside of your session, depending on what it is you want to do. So for example, here on my master output, I've got my quick control set up. By the way, if this is not showing, you need to go to the icon here, the setup icon, and just make sure it's ticked on here. For my master output, I've actually got a couple of quick controls set up here to control certain things, and you'll notice I've got the SSL thresh and the Pro L thresh. Now, basically, what these are controlling here is if I load up my inserts, I've got the Waves SSL bus compressor on here, and what the quick control allows me to actually do, so I don't have to keep loading up the plugin. Let's say I wanted to adjust the threshold of the compressor, I can use the quick control to adjust this. Now, this is a really handy control, having quick controls, and it's really easy to set up as well. And I've also got one set up here for the fab filter limiter, so I can control the threshold of my limiter to apply a various amount of limiting. Now, as I say, this is really easy to set up and it's really handy. So if I click the learn function here, all I would need to do is whatever plugin or product you've got open, you just literally take one of the controls and just move the dial on it, and you can see it's now mapped it to that. Unfortunately for me, I've just done that wrong because it's mapped it to this one here, but never mind. You don't have to use the quick learn feature for this. You can also click on an empty box, and this will bring up all of the controls for the channel. So this will include the mixers, EQ, the pre-section, the channel strip, and then it will go onto your insert as well. You can see here, so the input filters if you want to use the built-in EQ for the channel, the panning, and then you've also got your insert section here, and you can see here I've got the individual plugins which show up, and then if I go to here, I can then choose one of the controls I want the quick control to affect. So I can set this one to attack, and you can see here this is now controlling the attack. Well, this also works for libraries. It doesn't work for all sample libraries. For example, cinematic strings doesn't allow me to control any functions using quick controls, but some libraries like Heaviosity stuff, for example, when you load the product up and the patch up inside your mixer, it's already assigned quick controls because Heaviosity have already done that for you. But you can assign your own if you wish. So, for example, if I wanted to control the level of the mix for the mid microphone here, all I would literally do is click the learn button, do this, and you can see here it's now been assigned to this top function here. It's very handy, and you can also automate these things as well. You can clear all of them by pressing the remove all assignment, and you can also get the default settings from the actual product. Now that's a very handy one, because if they've already got it mapped out for you, you can automatically just click on this and it'll assign it. Unfortunately, for CS strings, yeah, these don't really control anything because they've not been mapped out, which is a shame. I hope they can do that, but there you go. So that's quick controls. The next thing I want to show you is stuff inside of the actual mixer as well. So if I bring up the mixer, it's got you've got 3 tabs here on the left. If they're not showing, you can use these buttons to hide and show various things. And you've got your visibility. It works exactly the same as it does when I was showing you guys the folder options. You can hide specific things, and you can already see that it's showing up the folder hierarchy. You've also got this thing called zones, okay? And what zones does is allow you to split the mixer, so you can have it offset to the left and stuff offset to the right. So as you can see here, I've got my VCA. You notice how it's disappeared now. If I were to scroll all the way over here, you can see it's on the left side of the mixer. But if you want to have like all your groups and all your effects on the right hand side of the mixer, you can just use this feature to put them over to the right, as you can see there, and it just splits it up. And I like to have 2 separate mixers, so one with all my group faders and stuff showing, and then the other one with the actual normal channels on it as well. You've also got the histogram, or the history section, which is really useful. So let's say I've done this. Every little move I make gets recorded here, okay? So let's say I did something, I didn't like the sound of it, and I wanted to undo it. I just look at the history here and then just click back on wherever it was last that things sounded normal, and it will reset things, which is pretty handy. While we're in the mixer here, another thing that I want to show you guys is to do with inserts and visibility. So first, let's get the visibility stuff out of the way. Up here, you've got a couple of options. You've got configurations. If you to the left of that, you've got this little box here. If you click on that, you've got all these different check boxes, and what you can actually do is customize what you see in your mixer. So if I want to see my audio channels, I can see them. I've got none of them in this session. So instrument channels, I want to see them. MIDI channels, these can be a little bit annoying because you can't, you don't really want to see them. So I normally turn those off. Sample channels, well, we're not using any sampler channels. Group channels, we want to see those so they can be brought up. Effects channels, VCA faders, and then your outputs as well if you want to see your output section. The other thing you can actually control is the tabs themselves, what tabs you want to see. So if you click on racks, you can show all racks if you wish, or you can turn them all off, and then you can show specific things. So we want our inserts, pre and post. You can have the routing on there as well, equalizer if you want to see that, all the channel strip, your sends, your key sends, your direct routing, and all the rest of it. And you can just customize the visibility of these. Now another thing you can do with the racks here is this star icon. You've got exclusive expanded rack, you've got fixed number of slots, and link racks to configuration. Basically, when you've got fixed number of slots on, when you click this, it will load up it will load up all the slots that you've got showing here in the mixer. If you turn this off, it will just do like a few, okay? Another thing to do with your slots here is if you if I expand these all to a fixed number of slots, you'll see this green line, okay? And what this green line does is define where the pre and post fader section is for your inserts. Now on older versions of Cubase, it'll be at the very bottom. You'll just have 2, okay, for your post fader. And then if you right click on any of the empty slots, you can actually set as the line of where the post and pre is. So if you want these to be post fader, all these plugins, you can set them as post fader along here. If you want pre, you can have all the pre section here as well. It's alright, someone's just sneaking into my office here. All adds to the comedy. Trying to be really quiet. You can be really loud if you want. If you need to take that. Add into the comedy. I stole my other half's light for that video the other day, and I forgot to take it back, and now she's reclaiming it. Right. So yeah, you got your pre and your post plugin section here, and you can put the dividing line in. If you're wondering what the difference is between pre and post fader, obviously it's pretty self-explanatory. If it all determines if you want the plugin to be post fader or if you want the plugin to be pre fader. And this is actually handy if you want to do something like record audio through plugins and all that. But I won't go into that for this video because we're looking at just handy features. Now, going back to plugins, let's move that down there. If you want to delete a plugin, it's easy to do. You can either do it with the down arrow icon and go to no effects, or when the plugin's got the really thin red box around it, you can click delete and it'll delete the plugin. Let's put that plugin back in. Another way you can do it is that if you want to delete all the plugins in a rack, you just click on the inserts here. This is one thing it's slightly annoying with Cubase, is that, you know, it will do stuff like that where it closes up. But if you've got the main box selected here, you can actually click delete, and it will delete everything in your rack as well. Okay, so let's undo that. And you'll see they've all popped back up. You've also got this other button here called Select Preset, and there is actually a lot of presets inside of Cubase, with, you know, using the inbuilt mixer features to tailor a sound, but you can also use this to save your own signal change as well. So for example here, if I wanted to save this particular set of plugins, I could put, I don't know, you can see I've got a couple here, Tracks Master, all the rest of it. You can actually save this chain of plugins, and then at any point if you want to load it up and recall it, you can actually just load it up again. But, you know, it's as simple as that. What else? What else is on my list here? So we've done control room. Okay, so if you press F4 on your mixer, there's actually two ways you can set your outputs in Cubase. You've got the normal way, which is using the outputs section, but you'll see here I haven't actually got this connected because I'm using control room. And what control room allows you to do, allows you to set up loads of different things. So you can add, if you've got like a console, you can set up your talkback, you can set up your cues, your headphone mixes, and you can also have the ability, if you've got more than one set of speakers plugged in and you want to switch between speakers to check your mixes, you can also do that using the control room. It's pretty straightforward once you set it up. Obviously I'm just using it for my main stereo outputs, and the reason for this is that don't want to close that. Over here, if you click on the right, you've got your different tabs, your VSTI, media, meter, and CR, which is control room, and it's got all these different functions. So you can check, if you're working in 5.1, you can check between speakers, and then you've got different setups you can create. But the cool thing is here, you see this monitor 1 and monitor 2. If I had two sets of speakers set up, I've got this other, you know, section here. I can rename this as if I wish by double clicking. So I could say that's Yamaha speakers, and let's say, I don't know, I had some KRK monitors or something like that as well. You can see here it's renamed them, and by switching between the speakers, it's as simple as just clicking on, you know, that you just switching between them. So if you're checking your mixes out on different media, you can do that. It's a really cool feature. Also though, the control room allows you to do other things as well. It allows you to put your whole mix in mono or stereo, and then you can control things like your click. You've got a dim, and you've also got a quick dimming feature here where it allows you to drop the signal by 20 dB. So if you want to listen to something quiet, then you can quickly listen to something quiet without having to reach for the volume on your audio interface. There's also a lot of other handy features here as well inside of this. I mean, this shows up in your mixer as well. I always have it up in my mixer. You've got your meter section here, and it gives you the RMS and the peaks, and you can change through the different scales as well if you wish. So moving on, what else can I show you? I've showed you deleting plugins. Oh yes, resetting the mixer. Let's say you've got a mix on the go and you want to just reset everything to its default values. This is really simple. Up here you've got this icon, this down arrow icon. If you click on this and go to reset mix console and channels, if you click on that and click OK, it will remove all your plugins, reset the pan to center on all of your channels, and also reset the fader levels to 0 dB as well. I think it also resets the routing as well of everything. Now another thing I'm going to show you actually while I'm thinking about it is routing itself is actually really easy to do if you want to do a lot of things. So if I bring up this mixer, let's say I wanted to send all of these strings to an effects bus. Normally what some people do is they just, they'd create their effects bus and then they'd find it in the list and send it and do it for each individual one. There's actually a lot quicker way to do this, and it's that if you select, by holding shift, if you click on one of the channels and then click on the last channel you want to select, it will select all of them in between. You can go to right click and you can do things like send all of these tracks to an effects bus, or you can assign them all to a group, or you can add a VCA fader to them. So let's send them all to an effects track, and you can see here add effects channel to selected channels. That means it will send all these channels to an effects channel. If I were to click on that, it would just create an effects channel and these wouldn't be assigned to it. So I'm going to click on that one, and then you can put whatever plugin you like on there. Let's put Camel Crusher on it for the hell of it. Okay, and then you'll see when I scroll back over to the strings here, they've all been assigned to Camel Crusher and they're already set up. Now, if I select all these again and hold shift, I think it's shift and alt, or is it just shift? It's one of them. I know it's one of them. Yeah, if you hold alt and shift when you've got them all selected, you can actually control all of the levels at the same time for every single one if you need to. If you've still got it all holding alt and shift as well, you can also switch all of them to post or pre-fader, and you can also turn off things like all the inserts as well in any given go, or you can activate them all for solo or mute them all. Alt and shift just allows you to do the same function to every selected channel. So another use for this would be to add a plugin to all of these. So let's say I wanted to add Camel Crusher to all of these. There you go, it's added Camel Crusher to all of these. And if I still hold alt and shift and change the values on any of the plugins, it will do it to all the plugins as well. So that's a very handy shortcut actually that I want to show you. And you can also use it to remove all these plugins as well from those selected channels. So let's just discard all of those. Okay, there we go. What else can I show you? I've showed you the mixer presets where you can load up mixer presets. It's the same story inside of when you click the E button to bring up the channel settings here as well. You can also load EQ presets or channel strip presets as well if you want to use Cubase's built-in features. Another thing actually which is handy is if you want to use any of the inbuilt stuff in Cubase like the saturators, the limiters or anything like that, or the EQ, and you want it before your insert chain, then there's a button here which will actually move the channel strip and equalizer of Cubase before the plugins. Okay, so normally it's plugins then channel strip in the signal chain. Okay, so if you if you press this button, you'll see here it reverses it. It doesn't show it in the mixer here, but it shows it here. So the channel strip will actually be first, and then your plugins will be next in the processing chain. So it's just something handy to note. if you want to, you know, mix using Cubase and then color using some other plugins, or if you want to do it the other way around. You know, it's entirely up to you. I've showed you the batch sending stuff with all the you know, selecting all these and groups. VCA faders, that's another one. VCA faders. A good thing for me to show you with VCA faders, they basically do what Shift and Alt do, VCA faders in a nutshell, but it gives you a little bit more control. So let's say I've got a mix going on here, and I like the sound of it. Okay, but the overall volume is a little bit loud, and I want to move all of these down or up. I could do it like this using Shift and Alt. But it's not very, you know, I just want to keep everything where it's at. You can use a VCA fader to do this as well, as you can see here, and it also keeps all the faders relative to each other as well in the scale of when you're moving up and moving down. But the cool thing about VCA faders is that you can actually automate them, so you can use this to automate all of those tracks. And the beauty is that when you actually, you know, automating or doing anything like this, you can move any of these inside of the VCA group, and you know, it will retain where its position relative to the other stuff as well. Whereas if you weren't to use a VCA group and you just used automation to control all of these groups, if you wanted to control, you know, lower the level of something like, say, I don't know, the percussion, I wanted to lower the level just a little bit, the automation would stop you from doing that. It'd snap it back to its original position while it's moving up and down. So using a VCA fader is a great way to control multiple channels, but also allows you to retain, you know, the ability to move individual faders up and down if you need to tweak any levels in your mix. And that's not the only thing VCA faders can do. If I go to the link settings here, you can actually set it so any pan, if I've pan, I don't know, one channel, it'll pan the rest of the channels exactly the same. If I start EQing on one of the channels, it'll EQ them all the same. And it's the same thing, the automation, you can get them to link together quite nicely and do different things. So if I set this on here, you can see here now. So it's essentially just Shift and Alt, but it's a little bit deeper than that. Now, how I use VCA faders, if you're wondering, is I use them to control. I've got all my individual string sections and percussion sections going to a group channel, and you can see here CS strings, that's the group for cinematic strings, that's the group for Inspire strings. And then I use the VCA fader to control the overall of these faders. So when it gets a little bit when you think about headroom on your master channel, you kind of want to leave yourself a lot of headroom, and you don't want to be driving a really hot signal into your plugins. So I use this as my master fader essentially for controlling the overall level of the whole mix, and then that runs into the master output chain here, and that means I'm not going to hit my plugins too hard, and it allows me to tweak things as well. So that's why I use a VCA fader. There's lots of different situations for VCA faders, to be honest. So yeah, I think I've covered pretty much everything I wanted to cover with you guys, just to show you some handy ways to go about doing things. There are a lot of features in Cubase. There are a lot of features. I'm going to be doing some more videos soon after the competition. I want to get the competition out of the way first. I want to show you some of the MIDI modifiers and MIDI inserts and some of the cool things you can do with those. So, as always guys, thank you for watching the video. Be sure to hit the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed to the channel already. If you're new to the channel, welcome to the channel. I hope you've been enjoying the videos been uploading. If you've got any comments or questions or anything like that, obviously put them in the comments box below. If you want to keep up to date with all the videos on the channel, be sure to hit the bell icon so you get notified when a new upload has landed. And as always guys, thank you for watching, and I will see you in a week for the competition.